Whenever I think of the French Revolution, I think of Paris, for it was in this city that I took part in many of the events of that great upheaval. I often think of October 1795, 6 years after the revolution began. It was here, near the Church of Saint-Roch, that I watched government troops of our French Republic fire on some royalists. I was watching the last great flare-up of the French Revolution. How France had changed, and I had seen it happening. The ancient monarchy destroyed, the Republic set up in its place, our freedom won. 6 years of revolution. My thoughts went back to that fateful year when it all began. 1789. I thought of my long journey in the spring of that year, when I, Georges Roger, lawyer, member for the Third Estate, was traveling to Versailles. I was one of a number of men who were going to the Estates General, an assembly summoned by the king. There were many of us Frenchmen, traveling from all parts of France to solve the grave crisis in our government. There seemed little evidence of crisis as I looked out over our French countryside. On this spring day, the land seemed peaceful and prosperous. Yet I knew the peasants were not prosperous. Most of them, good times or bad, paid taxes to their landlords, usually nobles. Ancient feudal rights gave the aristocrats rents and services from the peasants and control of lands, often vast estates. In chateaux like these, many nobles lived very well. They were exempt from certain taxes, and the best government positions were open only to them. Then there were the clergy. They possessed about 1/10 of the land. From their holdings and other sources, the clergy derived great income. I thought of these classes of French society: the clergy of the First Estate, the nobles of the Second Estate, the peasants and other commoners of the Third Estate. I was a commoner too, a member of the Third Estate, and so were most of the people of the towns. In one town where we stopped, I talked with Monsieur Favre, one of my clients, another member of the Third Estate. Favre was a businessman, typical of many of our middle class, bourgeoisie, as we call them. He was an educated, capable man who could have served his country well if he had been born a noble. I thought of the government's need for capable men as I read the financial report of the finance minister. We were counting on the financial wizard, Monsieur Necker, to save the situation. I could see from his finance report that France was close to bankruptcy. More and more it was obvious to me, sweeping reforms were needed to save France. Not far from Paris, we stopped at an inn. It was here that I and my traveling companion met other elected deputies to the Estates General. We were going to an Estates General that would be the first one called in 175 years. We talked of little else. Each of us had his cahier, or list of grievances. We agreed that privileges, especially tax privileges, must go. We hoped for many reforms to be achieved under a constitutional monarchy. The innkeeper's boy was interested in our conversation. He wanted to know more about our government. I said that perhaps, with the help of a few chessmen, I could illustrate our present form of government. In theory, we were ruled by the king. He alone made the laws. These laws governed all three classes of French society: the clergy, the nobility, and all the rest of us, the Third Estate. The system worked badly. The monarchy needed reform. We, the commoners of the Third Estate, wanted a constitution to improve the condition of the people. The boy told us that the deputies in the other private room wanted a constitution too. He had heard them talking. Yes, these were deputies too, members of the nobility and clergy. They also wanted a constitution, but of a different kind. This nobleman would like the Constitution to guarantee the traditions and privileges of his class. This churchman wanted to see the Estates General give wide powers to his own first estate and to the second estate of the nobles to govern France. And will they get their way? The boy wanted to know. In the old days, the first and second estates, voting as units, always outvoted the third estate, 2-1. But this time, if we vote as individuals, then all of us of the third estate have a chance. For in number, we have as many deputies as the other two estates combined. Yes, I said, perhaps we of the third estate may yet achieve the equality for all that we want. Equality, equal opportunity for future generations of France. Little did I know, as I resumed my journey, that we would achieve that equality. Step by step, we built the Republic. I remembered the first step, May 5th, 1789. I was impressed when I saw Versailles Palace, seat of the ancient autocracy of France. Here, all of us deputies were welcomed by Louis XVI, our king. I remember his face of a well-meaning but slow-witted man. He found it hard to make decisions. I remember other faces. Mirabeau, the great orator, a noble who joined us of the third estate. The Marquis de Lafayette, another liberal noble who helped our cause, as he had helped the cause of the American Revolution. Most of all, I think, I remember the people of Paris. They had come to wish us well, and were looking to us, the deputies, to correct old abuses. The young looked forward to new opportunity, equality. The old hoped we could improve on the ancient monarchy. So we came to Versailles with high resolve. I remember the scene of the great hall where all the deputies met. And I remember how each estate was dismissed to deliberate separately. We of the third estate would enjoy no unity with the other two estates. For about 2 months, we did little. Then, in a momentous step, we declared our group the National Assembly. We invited the others to join us. And some of them did join us. We, the National Assembly, took a great oath that we would never disband until we had written a constitution. Yes, we had defied the king. The next defiance came not from us, but from the people of Paris. There was discontent in the city. Jobless and hungry citizens, drifting in from the country, were pilfering food. Swiss and German troops appeared. The rumor spread the king was bringing in mercenaries to rule by force. Tyranny. The Parisian mob grew. There began a frenzied search for food and arms. The French guards joined them, adding strength. Weapons were seized from a government warehouse. Now the mob marched on the Bastille, grim prison, symbol of tyranny. The assault was led by the French guards. It was revolution. There was no turning back. The violence spread. In the provinces, peasants rose against their landlords, the aristocrats. A few months later, the Parisians again took action. At Versailles, clamoring for bread, they entered the gates of the royal palace. They moved on into the royal apartments. They took the king back with them to Paris. Yes, that was how the violence had begun. Then, we deputies had come to Paris, too, to continue the work of the assembly, the making of new laws. I remember that day in 1789 when I saw a copy of the first part of our Constitution, the glorious Declaration of the Rights of Man. How pleased and happy we were. In our declaration, we had expressed the meaning of the revolution. Men are born and remain free and equal in rights. These rights are liberty, property, security, and resistance to oppression. All have the right to be represented in the government. These and other rights meant the end of privilege. Now, the nobles and clergy of the first two estates could work with us to give France a constitutional government. To achieve that government, many nobles of France gave up their rank and privileges willingly and worked with us. They gave up the costume of the aristocracy for the plain dress of the citizen. But other noblemen, in the two hectic years of 1790 and 91, fled France for safety. Some went to foreign courts and tried to win aid for their cause. In 1791, the king himself tried to flee Paris. Before he had gotten very far, he was caught and brought back to Paris. King Louis was now virtually a prisoner. Political cartoons showed him in a cage, subservient to popular will. We had forced him to accept the Constitution of 1791. But the turn of events had alarmed other monarchs of Europe. Austria and Prussia invaded France in 1792, determined to rescue the king and punish the people of Paris. Our French troops fought well, but for a time it seemed that our enemies might win. Back at home, the people of Paris stormed the palace of the Tuileries. The king and queen were placed under arrest, and the Republic was proclaimed. Power was shifting to the more radical revolutionaries. Danton was one of the leaders who voted to execute the king. Robespierre was another. Louis must die, he said, that the country may live. For Louis XVI, the guillotine was inevitable. And after that, events moved swiftly. Ah, yes, we were confident then. We offered our slogan, liberty, equality, fraternity. We announced that France would help all people achieve freedom. It was this kind of propaganda that spurred European monarchies to action. France was fighting not only Austria and Prussia, but Great Britain, Spain, and Holland as well. In 1793, France was fighting almost all of Europe. And the Republic was fighting for its life at home as well. Insurrections broke out. There was religious strife, inflation. Our government took ruthless measures to arrest and destroy royalists and others who opposed the Republic. For anyone who spoke against the government, arrest. Even Monsieur Favre, my old friend and business client, went to prison. Men such as Carnot and Robespierre, leaders of the Committee of Public Safety, were attempting to destroy the enemies of the revolution at home and the foreign enemies fighting France. And as the situation improved on the home front and the war front, the people approved for a time. They approved even when some of us, members of the government itself, were arrested. It was a systematic, organized government of terror. Increasing numbers of people, guilty and innocent alike, were sent to death. In the end, even such leaders as Danton and Robespierre followed their victims to the guillotine. Suddenly, the terror was stopped. A conservative reaction set in. Quietly, we went to work to try to consolidate the gains we had made in the revolution. But there was still a final chapter. One more uprising in Paris. This time, our Republic put down royalist insurgents. Once again, cannon in the streets of Paris. I hoped I had seen the last attempt to overthrow the Republic. Edmund Burke had said, The person who commands your army is the master of your whole republic. I did not know much about the young commander I saw. His name was Napoleon Bonaparte. And so, on that October day in 1795, I thought of the future of our young republic. And I thought, too, of all we had won in those 6 years of revolution. In 1789, we had come together from all parts of France. We had determined to establish a constitutional government to replace the absolute monarchy. We, with the help of some of the nobles and clergy, had swept away the privileges of the ancien régime, the old order. We had replaced privilege with equality. We had uprooted the last traces of feudalism. Our Declaration of the Rights of Man set forth the ideals of democratic government for all the world to see. True, our methods were sometimes violent and cruel, and we did not accomplish all our goals. But we had accomplished lasting results. It was up to the generations to come to decide what we had done in the French Revolution.